Cyber Concerns for Community Associations webinar. I'm your host, Sherry Branson. I'm now joined by Kevin Davis, the president of Kevin Davis Insurance, and Kevin joins me right now from Los Angeles. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Sherry. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you. Doing well. Is it still nice and toasty and hot out there in Los Angeles?
Now, I'm just checking the computer, and it says it's probably about 90 today. So it's still pretty hot, but
not quite as bad. Yeah. Well, that's a little bit of a break, and I saw the forecast is supposed to cool off out there. Yeah, I don't know for everybody. Welcome everybody for joining us today. It's been really hot in Los Angeles. It's been like 100, 103, so they're experiencing quite a heat wave out there, right, Kevin?
yeah, and this is almost November, so it should not be this hot, and it's been
Yeah,
very, very hot out here. Yeah.
exactly. You can't believe that the holidays are right around the corner and it's 102 degrees out. That's just incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It
But
is.
guess what? We have an exciting webinar today, don't we?
Yes, we have a hot webinar, Kevin. We have a hot topic, a hot topic. And thank you
Exactly.
for joining us today. If anybody would like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, please send me an email to sbranson@kdins.com. And I did want to mention that I record all of our webinars and I put them on our website so you can listen to it again if you want to hear it over again. And Kevin, what's our goal in today's webinar?
Sure, Sherry. Our goal today is to really talk about what cybercrime is. And we divide it into 5 things you need to know about cybercrime. And then we'll talk about crime coverage itself.
Okay, so we're going to talk about cyber coverage and crime coverage and how they address cyber concerns. That's great. And Kevin, there's been a lot in the news lately regarding cyber and data breaches, and there's a really big one that just happened.
Yeah, Equifax. Equifax is interesting because it's one of those situations that can happen to any corporation. Meaning this, hackers had access to their system. And as a result, 143 million people data was stolen. 143 is like half the country.
Wow, that's half the population of the United States. I would say
Yeah,
that's a pretty big hack.
yeah. And you got social security numbers, driver's license numbers, names, addresses, the works. And it all happened because of one simple thing. They did not put a patch that was sent out. You know how we get those patches like almost every month now from,
Right,
Microsoft or Apple say, hey, update your system, update your system, update your system.
right.
Well, guess what they did not do?
They didn't do the patch.
They didn't patch. And what happens is once you send out that, guess what, it's time to patch. Guess what hackers are looking for? People who did not put the patch in there.
Yeah, exactly. And for such a huge corporation to not use the patch, which a
Mhm.
patch basically helps, it helps the security stay up to date, right, Kevin? That's what a patch does.
Exactly. They
So if you
found a weakness.
download
They
that,
found a weakness in your system, and all of a sudden they say, here's the way to stop the weakness. So now, once you put that up there, the cyber criminals are out there going, wait a minute, there's a weakness in there. I'm going to jump in there and get to it before, guess what? You make that change. And can you imagine a corporation as big as Equifax, and they just didn't do it?
no,
You
it's
know,
it's actually shocking. It's actually pretty shocking that they didn't do it, actually.
and that's why topic is so important because a big company like Equifax didn't do it. Can you imagine the corporations that we do business with? Not only are we talking about, the community associations, we're talking about the management companies. We're talking about, the law firms, everybody that's around us. If you don't do those little teeny things, everybody gets access to it. And that's why when we talk about today is cyber exposure. Cyber exposures are critical to what we're doing. It doesn't matter if you're a large corporation or a small corporation, all corporations have data. They have
Absolutely.
data on their clients, they have data on their vendors, employees, which can be lost or stolen. Now, when that information is lost or stolen, the key thing we look for is it's called personal identifiable information. When that is missing or stolen, by law, you have to do something about it.
Okay. Now, when you use the term, Kevin, for people who may not be that familiar with cyber or data breaches, when you use the term personal identifiable information, that's a long term. What exactly are you talking about there?
Okay. What happens is this, is that once that information is missing, and we're talking about a name, first name and last name, plus social security number, driver's license number, account numbers, credit card numbers, debit card numbers, security codes, passwords. When that information has been stolen, you have what's called a data breach. And that's what we're talking about here, a data breach. When a data breach happens, 47 out of 50 states says you have to do something about it.
47 out of 50 states have laws on data breaches. Is that what you're saying, Kevin?
Exactly. So you have to do something about it if there's a data breach.
Okay.
And again, it is that information together. So if you go down to your management company's office, you live in a condo, and all of a sudden you see your social security number on the list, and you may see Sherry's name next to it. It's just not a data breach. A data breach when your first and last name is attached to that information.
Okay.
So when those two things are together, you have a data breach.
Okay, when you have the two pieces of information. And Kevin, which are the states that don't have laws about data breaches? I'm curious.
Sure. It's Alabama, New Mexico, and South Dakota.
Okay. Okay, so those three states do not, but everybody else does. So you have to abide by those laws, and associations should be aware of what the laws are, because if they are breached, then they have to pay attention to this. And now, Kevin, we just talked about Equifax, which is a huge credit reporting agency. It's a humongous corporation, and associations are small. So are the small businesses getting hacked as well? Are they getting targeted?
Sure. Yeah. We're talking about our top 5 reasons why you need it. Number 1 is hackers are targeting small business. I mean, that's pure and simple. Hackers hack. That's what they do. And they do it for all different kind of reasons right there off the bat. But when we talk about hacking today, let's look at the way we secure our homes today. At my house, I bought this house a few years ago, and I got motion detectors in there. I make sure my windows and doors are locked. I got an alarm system in there. I mean, it's hard to break into my house. Okay. The problem is that most people use their computer system as they use their home 20 years ago. Okay, where they leave their windows open, doors unlocked, no alarm system. The reality is things have changed. You need to make sure you have all the security out there that's humanly possible to protect the data in your system. That seems to be the problem right now.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that companies are not keeping up with the security that's needed to protect people's information that they're in control of.
Yeah, I mean, let me give you an example. You're talking about spyware protection. You're talking about spam protection. You're talking about even a firewall that we have. All the things we have on our computer right now, guess what? When you go to work, it should be in your system. And if you think about it, most large corporations have the best security in place, and guess what happened? They still get hacked.
Right. Yeah, Equifax and other companies.
They know what to look for, and they know where to go for that weak link. They know where to look for when you should patch something, and they don't patch it, and they exploit it. And once they're in that system, they steal all the information, and they try to. Okay, they've taken money, they've taken information, and they want to corrupt your system so that you can just stop the system, shut the whole system down.
They could shut it down, absolutely. And what are some of the ways that they get into your system, Kevin?
Okay, one way is that, and this we heard happen to a law firm out in Los Angeles, where somebody got into the weekend and stole all the servers, the computers, all the laptops, took everything out of the system. Everything's gone.
Wow. How did they do that, Kevin? How did they pull it off?
They just came into it. They came in over the weekend and took all the equipment out of there. And again, the key thing is the server. Once you take that server out of there, they have all the data, all the information's on there, and they can't get access to any of that data again.
Wow. So they're actually stealing servers.
All the information together is just incredible. Really, really tough for them. Okay? Now, the second way, what they'll do is that they'll masquerade as a IT professional that's been called into by the home office, or called in because we heard you had issues, or it could be a janitor or exterminator coming in and saying, we're here to help you. And where's your server room at? They go in your server room and they put a little thumb drive in your computer there, or they'll put a box on top of your computer and then put a label on it, say IT only, do not touch, and leave it on top. When they do that, what they're doing is stealing all the information out of it. Get it all.
That's incredible. Yeah, I went online one day to look up Apple to get technical support for Apple, and all these companies came up, and I called the number. And after talking to the person for a little while, it didn't sound like an Apple person to me, Yeah. So I think it was a fake Apple company, and they could have put something on my computer. They wanted to log in like remote login, and I thought, no.
Well, I tell you, it's interesting what happened to me. I tried to renew my registration, my auto registration, right? So I went to dmv.org, right? So all of a sudden, they ask you to put all this information, and they charge you a fee, a $30 fee to renew it.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense. But then I realized that it's dmv.gov. So you go to dmv.org, it's the same thing. It's that And it's not a hack or anything. They'll take all your information and they'll pay for it. I guess, I don't even know, but they charge you money up front. They say, hey, for expedited service, we can charge you this. And again, it is so many ways out there to trick you into getting information. And I gotta say right now, the easiest way and the most effective way and the fastest growing area for cyber-related activity is with social engineering. Hackers use social engineering, which is like phishing. Phishing, perfect example, because the reality, what they want to do is trick you into clicking on something or providing them information so they can get into your system.
Okay, when you say social engineering and phishing, that's like somebody sending me an email that looks like my bank email, like a real legitimate email, right? And I click on the link, they say, Sherry, it's time to change your password or whatever account, update your account information, because I've gotten those from Bank of America and from American Express.
Oh, let me give you a perfect example of what happened to one of our associations, okay? A board member received an email that appeared to be from the landscape, requesting that a payment be made. Simple payment be made to avoid any late fees. You got to pay it right now, okay? So, but the key thing what they did is requested the money be sent to a different bank. They said the current bank you sent it to is under audit right now, so we have this new bank temporarily. So guess what happened? The payment was made to the new bank. Then eventually the board member got a late notice from the landscaper saying he hasn't been paid. He also says that guess what happened to us? Our email account, landscaper email account, has been hacked, and all their email addresses were taken and stolen, all the information was stolen. So later on, again, they find out that they lost the money. So that's social engineering in a nutshell. It's about taking information, tricking into being somebody they're not.
Absolutely. And I just want to add one more example. When I was at a trade show in Florida last year, somebody told me, a board member came up and told me that she had received an email from another board member, but it turned out that that other board member's email had been hacked, and the hacker sent her an email requesting a check to purchase a painting for the lobby of the condo association, and she almost cut the check, and then she thought, let me call the board member just to make sure, because it was kind of an unusual request. So she called the board member and they said, no, I never sent you an email. And he said, my email's been hacked. So she almost came really close to cutting the check.
2 years ago, nobody heard of social engineering. Right now, it's the fastest growing area because, again, it's easy to trick than to hack. It's easy to trick somebody and getting information than to hack information. And again, coverage is provided under the crime insurance policy on social engineering. We'll talk more about it in a little bit. But we talk about social engineering claims, we're talking about crime more so than the cyber policy. It can be covered in the cyber policy too, but right now, the key area is make sure it is included under your crime policy.
Okay, and right now we automatically add it as an endorsement on the crimes, right, Kevin?
Exactly.
Okay, it's automatically added on the crime policy, everybody. So if you have any questions about what we're going over, feel free to send me an email with your questions, which is sbranson@kdins.com, or you could type your questions into the question box on the screen, and we'll get back to you after the webinar. And now, Kevin, the thing about community associations is they may not have the expertise or the experience to protect the information that they're gathering from the homeowners, right?
Sure. And that's number two. Community associations, they lack that experience. And what basically it does is makes them a prime target. The major problem, when you talk about board members of community associations, they are volunteers. They have no training, no experience managing condominium association, even less experience handling technology, handling data. That is the major problem right off the bat. There's very little oversight of people handling funds. There's no requirement to become a board member or a treasurer or president. All you have to do is show up, and boom, you're now president or treasurer. And then the first thing they do is turn everything over to the property manager. They handle the handling of funds, all the technology, all your email system, everything over, even the reserve account, which is something they should never do, over to the manager company. And again, with very little oversight.
And another issue that comes to mind, Kevin, is, a lot of the board members, they don't look at the association as a business and that they have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. They kind of look at it as a social club or a hobby or something fun to do.
Yeah, and they need to treat it as it is. If you have a $100,000 unit, okay, you have 100 units, that is a $10 million corporation that you are managing. A $10 million corporation. And again, if you look at it as a corporation, versus looking at it as if you look at a corporation not as a business, the likelihood of you making better decisions are greater. You know, because when we talk about these data breaches itself, most of them occur because of employee error or volunteer error. You know, if you think about it, you know, I mean, most people, you ever go to an office and see people's passwords just stuck to their laptop or stuck to their computer? You know, employees are not trained up to know they shouldn't open up suspicious looking emails. Okay, they have lost laptops, stolen phones that are not even password protected.
Right.
So when we talk about security breaches, the data breaches, most of them because of employee actions.
Human error, sure. And we did have a situation in Florida with a stolen laptop, correct?
Exactly. And what happened, the situation there is that the laptop was stolen and it was not password protected. So all of a sudden, all the data that was in that computer, all the spreadsheets with people's name and information, had a potential to be a data breach. However, they found out that the information didn't have enough information in there to actually result in a claim, but it still could be sued for negligence by not having a password protected computer.
Absolutely. And just one little tidbit I wanted to add in is paper records can be an issue too if paper records are not disposed of properly.
And that's a very good point, because what happens is you think about these condominium associations. The management companies take over condominium association, and instead of purging all the files, they just keep them in storage somewhere, some building, and all of a sudden when they try to throw them away, they just dump them all away. So that's a good point. That's one exposure we have not talked about, is paper records.
And now, Kevin, are community associations responsible for the data even if they outsource it?
Yeah, that's number 3. We talk about the third thing we're talking about is community associations don't believe that they're responsible for the data. Okay, they believe that if they give the assessment collection over to the management company or the bank, they're no longer responsible. They're saying all we do is keep track of the names of people who live there and their addresses. We don't keep anything else. The problem is it's the community association's data. They are responsible. It may be the management company system, it may be in the cloud, it may be in the bank, but the reality is that the community associations still are legally obligated to notify the unit owners in the event of a breach.
Absolutely. And what do you think is the average cost per record loss, Kevin?
Average cost per record loss, I would say about $52,000 for 1,000 records. You know,
okay,
about that much, yeah.
Okay. And Kevin, what about the cloud?
Yeah. Okay. When we talk about the cloud, because a lot of people believe because they put the information in the cloud, okay, that it's safe. The problem is the cloud can be hacked because all clouds are not the same. Some clouds have more security than other clouds. And guess what most corporations do is that if you have a cheaper cloud versus more expensive cloud, a lot of people go for the cheaper cloud.
Of course.
They don't go for the big fluffy clouds. They go for the
they go for the low-cost cloud.
Exactly. And that seems to be the issue right now. It is, and the cloud can be hacked. And once it's hacked, again, the cloud person may say we take responsibility for it, but the reality is it's the ultimate responsibility of the association.
The association. And what about a contract, Kevin? If the association has a contract with a property manager, would that make a difference?
Well, the problem is that most contract the property manager has is reverse, meaning that they will hold that property manager harmless. So they will indemnify the property manager of all costs. So it really doesn't really apply because the management company, if a loss occurs, even though it's their fault, by contract, the board may have to indemnify them anyway. Still might be their board's responsibility. It depends on the contract. All contracts are different. But there's a strong indemnification agreement in most property managers' contracts.
Okay. So it would basically make sense for the property manager to have their own cyber policy and the association to have their own, correct?
Yeah, and make sure that the cyber policy, the management company is named onto the cyber policy.
Okay, so the manager is named as an additional insured on the association policy. That makes sense. So if you have any questions about what we're going over, please send an email to sbranson@kdins.com. And now getting back to the costs associated with the data breach, you said a cost per record loss would be about $52,000, Kevin. Is that correct?
Yeah, for 1,000 records. Now, what does 1,000 records mean? Okay, and this is according to the Verizon Data Breach Investigative Report. So if you want to know the costs, check out something called the Verizon Data Breach Investigative Report, and I'll tell you. For example, let's look at a 48-unit condominium. Okay, 48-unit condominium with 2 people in it at the minimum. and maybe the maximum 4 is about 150 to 200 records. Okay, but now you add renters and the people who used to live there, and then you got vendors and landscapers and pool management and all these other people. The record could be as many as 250. And again, if you used to live there, now all of a sudden we got to find which Sherry Branson it is. Is it Sherry Branson? Which out of the 5 Sherry Bransons that's all over the United States right now, which one used to live in this unit? So it's not easy. It's not simple. It's very, very complicated. So with 250 records, you're talking about a cost between $13,000 and $22,000. For 100 units, it could be as much as $50,000.
Okay, so the costs keep going up and up per the number of units, and like you said, there's could be multiple people in the household and previous people, et cetera, and vendors. So it keeps going up and up. And now, when you look at these breaches, Kevin, how are you calculating them? What are you looking at as far as expenses?
All right, now this is the most important part of this thing, because number one question we get asked is, how do you calculate the cost of these breaches? There are 8 costs that we're talking about. Now, out of all 8 of them, 5 are the top 5 are the most critical pieces, because if you have the first 5 done correctly, 6, 7, 8 really doesn't become an issue. Okay, so the first one is a forensic examination. So if there's a loss, or if that laptop is lost or missing, and first thing I do is find out, is there an incident itself or actual breach? So you look at the computer and go, okay, guess what? It was password protected, it was encrypted, guess what? You don't have an issue. So it's an incident, not a breach. But let's say that it was actually a breach. Then you got to find what the severity of the breach is, okay? And now you go to the next step, is notification of the third party. Now you have to notify all different people. And again, we said 47 states have data breaches. Let's say you're in Florida right now, okay? And it's their summer home or their winter home, but they live in Ohio. So you may have to understand Ohio law and Florida law.
Ah, okay. So somebody has 2 homes, and you have to go by both states.
The second home's in Florida. You have to worry about that. So when you notify the third parties, it's a little bit more complicated than just sending out notification. You have to understand where they're from and where they're at.
That makes sense.
So if they're back home in Ohio and they get a Florida notification, it may not apply because the Ohio breaches law may apply. So that's number 2. Number 3 is a call center. Okay, they should have a call center so that you can know what's going on. So you pick up the phone and say, or go to a website and say, guess what? Here's the extent of the breach. Here's what we're doing with the breach. Everything was okay. So we can have peace of mind. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The 4th thing is credit monitoring, ID monitoring. That's critical because you want to make sure that the people who've been hacked get up-to-date credit reporting to see has anybody went in and tried to actually steal their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And number 5, you get a PR firm to come back in and say, guess what? That company is great. It's not their fault. They've done everything to protect their system. Great. If you do those 5 things, number 6, which is defense costs, won't happen. Because what happened if you don't do one of the 5, the first thing that will happen is that you will be sued because you didn't handle the data breach the way you should have handled it. You didn't have proper notification. You didn't have proper call centers. You didn't have proper ID monitoring. I was negligent as a board member and not providing things I should have provided. So you have legal defense. Then you have regulatory fines and penalties, where the FTC or the state attorney general's office come in there and say, guess what? You didn't do the first 5 correctly. You didn't notify by law. You didn't do it correctly. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to fine you $30,000 or $50,000. And then number 8, once the attorney general comes in, they'll say, guess what we want? We want a written information security plan to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
So those are your costs. Those are the most important things out there, those 8 things out there, because when you put those things together, if you have 100 units, it costs about $50,000 for 100 units.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Those are a lot of things to remember if there is a breach. So if an association is not aware that all of these things have to happen, it could get to the legal defense and it could turn into a lawsuit. Absolutely. And now, Kevin, is this coverage affordable? And what type of what type of protection does it provide?
Yeah. When we talk about the 5th reason, we say there's 5 reasons why you need it. Number 5, it is affordable, okay, and necessary, because what we're talking about for cyber, we talk about cyber itself. First of all, there's no standard cyber policy. Some people add it by endorsement. Some people throw it on the equipment breakdown. It gets thrown on the D&O. But what they really need is a cyber policy that's divided in two sections. Okay, there's cyber losses and there are crime losses. Okay, if there's an actual data breach when somebody steals personal identifiable information, that is a cyber loss. If somebody steals money, it is a crime loss.
Okay.
And for $250,000 for a cyber policy, it's about $500.
Oh,
That's just a cyber part itself. The crime has its own limits, its own policy, just like it always has been separated. We say keep it separated out. If there's a crime loss, make sure it's covered under the crime policy.
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So we've got two policies, two different types of policies covering different aspects of cyber crime. And can you explain the main coverages for cyber insurance, Kevin?
Sure. Okay. When we talk about coverage for cyber itself, we're talking about 4 different insurance agreements. We're talking about network and information security liability, okay, which is when you get sued. It's a liability policy. You get sued because you didn't do the breach fast enough, you didn't handle it properly, so now you're sued. Regulatory defense expense is number 2. What that all it boils down to is that when the attorney general comes in, when FTC comes in and says we're going to find you, it pays regulatory defense expense. That means actually pays fines and penalties. It's probably one of the only liability policies out there that pays fines and penalties.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's excellent coverage. That's important.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The next one we have is security breach notification expenses. That's just the notification expenses. That's it.
Okay.
It is the notification that we have to all the expenses in terms of the call center, the credit monitoring, all those expenses in terms of the notification expense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then the crisis management expenses is just a PR firm to get things going again. So it's it. So those are the 4 main coverages right now under the cyber policy. Now, if you look at the crime policy, because the crime policy is a little bit different. Again, cyber is data breach, crime is theft of funds.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about computer theft crime coverage, which is when somebody actually comes onto your premises and has access to the computer on the premises. Funds transfer is somebody away from the premises, hacks into your system, and ciphers money's off. Social engineering is when somebody tricks you into surrendering the money. It's only covered under the crime policy. And under some crime policies, there's no coverage. Make sure you have social engineering on the crime policy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
Now comes the next coverage. That's brand new coverage that called e-commerce coverage.
Okay.
E-commerce is something that's now becoming very, very important and very, very necessary for community associations, property management companies, all the agencies out there, because that's where we had our first loss. We had our first loss on a cyber policy and from e-commerce extortion. What happened was somebody you get access to the system by logging on and clicking on something you shouldn't be clicked on, and all of a sudden you get this warning that comes out that says you're locked out. Your system is locked out. The computer has been locked. You see that on your system, you are now in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's shut down. You can't get into your computer. You can't get into your gate. You can't get into your access to anywhere, and you can't do anything. And the only way you can get out of there is by having. You need a key to unlock this thing, and a key costs money.
Mm-hmm. And this is ransomware, right, Kevin? That's what this is called, ransomware?
That's ransomware. Ransomware, and it's probably the fastest growing area of claims out there today, because once they get into your system, it is locked, and you can't do anything about it until you pay the fee.
So this is another situation where they could send me an email and pretend to be Bank of America or whoever, send me an email, I click on the email, I click on the link, and the next thing you know, my whole computer is frozen.
It's frozen. Yes.
It's shut down. Okay.
It's shut down. Okay. So that's going to happen more and more and more. 2 things that's happening is we talked about cyber. Number 1, social engineering, and number 2 is this ransomware. Ransomware is happening because it's really, really easy. It's easy to get into your system by tricking somebody into getting into it, locking the system down, because what they'll ask for are bitcoins. They won't ask for cash. They ask for bitcoins, and you never can track those bitcoins. Once it's in somebody's hand, it's in there, and it's through the dark web, which I don't know if it exists or not, but people say it does.
And I have no idea where to get Bitcoin. So if it happened to me, I'd be lost.
So when you talk about
E
e-commerce extortion,
extortion, e extortion goes with cyber. That endorsement goes with cyber, and social engineering goes with crime. The crime
yeah.
policy. Hmm.
And when you talk about e-commerce extortion, it's very, very important because you understand one thing is that it only provides coverage for the server that's in your association.
Okay.
So you can be president of your association and you have your own personal computer and somebody can lock it up and it's not covered under this policy. It's only covered when the server gets hacked and your server gets hacked. If the managed company server gets hacked, the managed company's coverage has to apply to theirs. Doesn't apply to yours. If your managed company is named additionally insured for a data breach, this is not a data breach. This is a locked system.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different coverage, different insurance agreement. And again, it's brand new and we're providing this coverage, but only if it's warranted. So you have to have a server, your association has to have a server, and it has to be locked down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay, so
That
there's
makes
requirements.
sense?
There's certain requirements to having this coverage. Kevin, you know a lot about cyber. You know a lot.
Oh, yes, yes. Now, guess what? Everybody who's listening to this webinar today knows just as much about cyber.
That's right. Everybody else is an expert now. You're all cyber experts.
And the key thing is that it keeps changing. You know, a year ago when we did this, we never talked about social engineering, never talked about e-commerce extortion.
Mm-hmm.
Next 6 months from now, we'll talk about something new that we never knew about. Those are the two things. You know, people ask, do we have claims in cyber? And the answer is yes. Social engineering, e-commerce extortion are the two claims you will see, and you'll see more and more and more.
Absolutely. Anybody with a computer or a phone, a smartphone is vulnerable, really, from the small businesses to the large businesses. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for a great webinar. Thank you for lots of great information. And thank you for joining us, everybody. I did want to mention one more time, if you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint, and if you'd like to list, I can email it to you. My email address is sbranson@kdins.com. And then I recorded today's webinar, which I'll be putting on our website, which is kdisonline.com. So thank you, Kevin, and thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon and have a great Halloween. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you.